Hi everyone, I'm Shae Farrar and I've joined up with Zach Farrar and Heather DeSpain to present our Capstone project. Next slide. So an idea is born. Sometimes the youngest people have the answers. Avery, my daughter, is a student at the Classical Academy, better known to some as TCA. At the end of kindergarten, Avery was assigned a Titan buddy, a bubbly thing that my daughter thinks is amazing, named Emma. They meet every Friday and are given a topic to discuss. There's some candy exchanges, a whole bunch of laughter, and a couple of rounds of would you rather. You know the game. Would you rather lick a trash can lid or the bathroom floor? Emma is my daughter's mentor and maybe one of the coolest people she knows. She is a great resource. And as a mother, I find myself saying occasionally, that's a great question for Emma. Emma, once in the first grade, not long ago, knows all the words to the Titan Creed, what assembly is, and how to navigate the lunch line. Next slide. So when researching a capstone project for our leadership course, we knew that we wanted to provide an answer to a need that we believed we could really make a difference. Much like Avery and Emma and their relationship, why couldn't a program like this work for adults? Were we missing an opportunity? Why couldn't a mentorship program work for PPCC? So onboarding at PPCC is primarily within departments, which does not foster community or interdepartmental relationships. So during these unprecedented times, being a new employee can be so difficult. You might come to work and only find one or two other employees in your whole department, with many people still working remotely. Hard to foster community or even departmental relationships this way. A mentorship program might just be the answer. So this program that we came up with is easy to implement. It's sustainable, low cost, big impact, and the resources we already have. There are great employees. Next slide. So there's actual science behind workplace relationships. Positive relationships are a basic human need. Workplace relationships have significant impact on mental health, health behavior, physical health, and mortality risk. Interesting fact, guys. Physical pain and social pain from being isolated hits the same region of the brain, exact same feeling. Relationships characterized by cooperation, trust, fairness, activate the reward center of the brain. So we wish to provide a resource to new staff that fosters a sense of empowerment and belonging. The benefits are endless to the mentee, to the mentor, as well as to PPCC. So to the mentee, a sense of belonging, resource outside of their department, community engagement. To a mentor, make great connections, community engagement, leadership and professional opportunities, and to PPCC as a whole, potential impact on the climate survey, increased morale and sense of belonging, positive impact on employee engagement. So research from a Gallup organization indicates that 1 out of 12 factors that illuminate whether an employee is happy on their jobs is having a best friend at work. So relationships with coworkers retain employees. Next slide. So Heather, Zach, and I looked at the CCCS Employee Climate Survey. Oh, Ashley, next slide. Sorry. Thank you. We looked at the CCCS Employee Climate Survey and felt the program would help to make improvements in certain areas, such as, I feel that my institution cares about its employees. Teamwork between and across departments is encouraged in my institution, and I feel valued at work. Highly engaged employees were 5 times less likely to quit than employees who were not engaged. So by emphasizing the community aspect of this program, we want staff to be involved from day one. When we reached out to our other community colleges, we could not find another college that offered such a program. This program could be a model to our peers, as all of them show great interest in our idea. Next slide. So we need a program that allows the empowering of our new staff, be able to encourage resilience, help them break through barriers, affirm their strengths, listen and offer advice, allow space to be vulnerable and transparent. So how do we do this? We teach and we mentor. So who knew this great idea that all just started between a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old might just be a fantastic plan for adults too. Next slide.
The program that we decided to create, we named PPCC Duo. The reason we named it this program is because we really want to focus and emphasize that one-on-one relationship. So duo, meaning one relationship. This is going to be a passionate group of volunteer mentors that will go through this program together. Next slide, please. The details of this program, we really want to focus on building those relationships outside of their immediate departments. Each department at Pikes Peak has their own onboarding process. You get to know those that you work with day in and day out, but there's not a lot of opportunity to build it outside of your department. We want to make sure that we foster that sense of community throughout Pikes Peak. We don't want everyone to feel isolated. We want them to know where everything is on campus, who they can reach out to when needed, everything that is involved with that true sense of community. And we saw this need a lot with the remote work situation. I could not imagine starting with Pikes Peak right now. You come onto campus and it is nothing like it has ever been. So coming here and not seeing another soul beyond maybe the person training you is not really a welcoming environment. But if we could bring someone into that training experience so that they have someone to reach out to get to know on a personal level, we might be able to create a better environment for them. We want this program to focus on new full-time staff with the hopes of expanding it later to part-time staff, but we want to really focus on the full-time at the moment. And it is voluntary. We don't want to make it mandatory for new employees, but we want to definitely encourage it and hope that they will participate. The key term that we focus on is that 90 days. The previous group mentioned that most employees are going to decide whether or not they're going to stay with an institution in that first 90 days. So that is kind of our make or break point. We are hoping that this duo will meet at least 6 times in that 90 days to establish that relationship. You can see here the expectations of the program. It's very simple. We don't want to do a strict mandated program, but we want to make sure that those that are representing Pikes Peak are doing it in an honorable way. We want them to be welcoming, and we will do both as the facilitators do periodic check-ins, but we want to make sure that the mentor and mentee are also checking in on one another. And this is not a senior-junior relationship. This is an equal relationship that both people will be building their networking capabilities and interpersonal relationship with one another. It is not, we want to really focus on that quality of the relationship. They also have the opportunity, you'll see there the badge. It is along with Ashley's professional development badging system, and the particular badge that participants will earn is the Bolster the Burrow. And next slide, please. One of the things we really wanted to focus on was how to pair the mentor and the mentee. We felt that this was one of the most critical aspects of this program. Who we pair with whom can definitely make or break. So the first thing we want to focus on is what their classification is. Are they APT? Are they classified? Are they in similar type of jobs? Are they, at the director level, or are they an admin assistant? Try and get those as closely paired as possible. The second one is that they have to be outside of their immediate area. That is a key point of this program, is that it is someone outside of their normal area. We have a questionnaire that is in the handout that Ashley provided in the comments that will try and match people on a personal interest level. It covers just some simple things on, what kind of hobbies do you have? What do you think your career pursuits will be? Those type of things. An attempt to really match people as well as we can. The position and shift hours one, that is actually something we learned from CC. They have a program kind of like this, but we really have to try and match people that have similar jobs. So if we have people that are doing shift work, they need to be matched with someone that is also doing shift work. Next slide. So for mentor recruitment, the first round, we are hoping to get nominations from VPs, directors, And then we have also scouted some, and we're hoping to use both this ELP group, the next one, and the supervisor groups to kind of get those initial mentors in place also. Mentorship is voluntary, of course, but we do have a few requirements. You have to have been with Pikes Peak at least a year. You have to know the basics. You have to love Pikes Peak and its mission. You are the one that's going to be representing Pikes Peak to this new employee, and you have to sign on to fulfill that 90-day commitment. Like, we have to, if you start it, you have to end it. Next slide. The toolkit, which is provided in the comments again, gives the basic framework for both the mentor and the mentee. It goes over the program overview and goals. We try to get into a little more detail on the program specifics, what benefits are to them for participating, and what few expectations we have of them. There's a few tips for meetings. We have some talking points, things like that. And then that questionnaire I've referred to earlier that helps pair them with their next, or their mentor or mentee. Next slide.
All right, and before we close out our presentation, we want to give a brief overview of the ways this project's success can be measured. There are several ways to gauge effectiveness of a program like this, and we're not going to go over them all, but we will give you a brief overview of the main ways we anticipate a program like this can be measured. So we plan on measuring it through two primary ways. First one is a post-onboarding and participation survey. This would be used to gauge participants' perceived value of their onboarding and initial PPCC experience. Surveys would be administered to new employees who participated and those who did not. In other words, onboarded without participating in PPCC Duo. And through these results, we could compare things like employees' reported sense of belonging and confidence in their performed duties, their perceived level of network opportunities and workplace support relationships, things like that. For program participants, both the mentees and the mentors, we could also survey their feelings on their specifics on how they feel the program may have helped them connect with PPCs. And for mentors, things like, did they feel like they were able to contribute to the PPCC community through their participation in Duo? The second primary way would be to take a look at any change in employee retention. In other words, are participants less likely to turn over in their through participating either as a mentor or as a mentee? As we all know, turnover is very costly, and the effects are felt throughout the entire organization. So looking at if there is any differences in employee retention after 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, would be very valuable in measuring whether this program is making a difference. We could also do some longitudinal surveys, possibly follow up with another survey comparing participants' thoughts on the effectiveness of the program 1 year out, 2 years out, stuff like that. And as alluded to earlier in the presentation by, I believe, Shae, bonus, it would be interesting to see if the employee satisfaction survey shows any significant change in reported answers. Employees are asked specific questions related to their job satisfaction, motivation, perception of PPCC as a workplace, and it would be interesting to see if there's any significant change in responses after the program is implemented, perhaps a few hiring cycles down the road. So next slide. So why we must do this? As we've discussed throughout this presentation, these types of mentor programs generally have a low cost, high impact. By providing increased community and belonging, this means increased performance as well as employee retention, which translates into a cost savings, of course, through reduced hiring and search costs to fill vacant positions. And of course, all the intangible increases that are hard to measure. It also provides a leadership and involvement opportunity for existing employees. By providing mentor employees or mentor opportunities, we give current employees an opportunity to serve, to give back, to meet their service goals toward PPCC. Also, this program could potentially provide additional committee or service opportunities with individuals serving on a mentor selection or pairing committee, working with program coordinators in HR. Also, many new employees report having little or no ways to network with others, especially outside of their immediate area, as we've mentioned. And I'm sure this is greatly exacerbated during the pandemic, of course. In many ways, because of that, this is a perfect time to launch such a program. Meaningful relationships are especially crucial during uncertain times, and this is definitely one of those. The program is also very sustainable. There's a low monetary cost through our model, and it capitalizes on and addresses an existing need for increased community that employees have expressed, and that we know national survey data has shown to be important. One of the other sustainability or sustainable ways in the program is mentees can graduate to become mentors, so they can give back to the program that made a meaningful impact to them. And as we've mentioned before, bonus, this type of program could serve as a model to our peer institutions. Next slide, please. So what we need from you. From leadership, we need institutional buy-in and commitment, support for establishing this new program. From HR, it needs to be integrated, PPCC Duo needs to be integrated into employee onboarding. And we envision a staff person, HR, or persons helping coordinate the matching process with help from others. I mentioned a matching committee made up of previous mentors or mentees or volunteers around campus who need to meet those service goals, who just want to give back. They could help match mentors and mentees. And from directors, nominations from area for mentors. Directors are in a perfect position to know which employees will be best to serve as mentors, and we need them to also encourage participation amongst new employees, supporting their meetings with mentors, setting a tone that this is something that is important and has value, not only for the new employee, but ultimately for every department on campus, including their own. Because ultimately, this is something that's going to improve their department and the entire college, right? So wrapping it up, we hope you've seen the value in a program like this and what it could bring if implemented for future employees. That concludes our presentation. As Heather mentioned, we hope you have an opportunity to flip through the mentorship toolkit that Ashley posted in the chat. That goes into a bit more details on program specifics that are just difficult to dive into during a presentation like this, and shows some different ways mentors can help facilitate their relationship with their mentees, and it'll help you, I believe, envision more what the program is all about. So thank you very much for your time. We're happy to take some quick questions if you have any. We know this is the 6th or 7th. Many of you have set in, and we thank you for your diligence, and we'll take questions now.
We already have quite a few questions in the chat. I'm going to try and start from the top and work our way down. So quantifying must love Pikes Peak. That is, as you probably know, not an easy thing to figure out, but it's going to require at least 6 coffee cups minimum on your desk at all times. But no, I think what we really wanted to focus on is that with them being volunteers, this is a passion for them. It's something they want to give back to our community. We all know that there's a few people, I believe, a very small few people that really don't want to be here. And we don't want those particular ones being the mentors. We want this to be a welcoming community. We want them to know how great it is to work here. And I think we will have no problem finding mentors, but there are some that probably would not be best placed. And that goes into Paul's question about it being volunteers. We were worried about mandating it because it would be easier to mandate for new employees, but as far as having someone saying, you know, Alberto, you are required to mentor this person, even if it is the beginning of the fall term and you have no time, no energy to put into this person. We really didn't want to mandate it. We are hoping there will be lots of volunteers, but we don't want to require it of anybody.
Sure. And, you know, many people are great at their jobs, but they may not necessarily be great at being a mentor. So we wanted to vet them just for the success of the program, especially starting out. We talked about maybe opening up an application process down the road after the initial, you know, trial run. But that's something we'll just have to evaluate when the time comes.
Next question is, can faculty participate? So we really focused on staff because it's our understanding that faculty already has kind of a program similar to it. I don't recall the name of it. Zach, do you remember? I think
It's
Christy
part of
said,
new faculty training. Christy may be able to share a little bit about the details on that, but as part of their new faculty,
we have a new faculty
forget the name of it.
for full-time and adjunct faculty, and then we also offer a 3-year that's now been condensed down to a 1-year program for full-time faculty. That's their academy.
Academy, that's the word. Yep.
Right.
so the big need we tried to focus on was for staff. We felt that faculty had at least some level of support, and staff in many cases have very little. And so we want to really focus on that particular group of placement.
And for the trial period, we wanted to make sure our scope was narrow enough, and focusing on staff allows us to, you know, see how a program like this would work out the kinks. You know, there's always an opportunity to take something wider once you have things fleshed out.
Another question that was in there is, do you envision any sort of specific training for mentors before they take on this role?
I think in Zach's toolkit that was provided out there, there is some good information that we kind of have given out as far as just some topics that maybe, you know, a mentor and a mentoree could discuss, some ideas of what that they could do together, just some ideas like that, maybe topics that we could give, you know, that would be a good starting point as far as being able to come together. So we have put some of those things into place to just sort of help the mentoree and the mentoree try to kind of connect.
We also
we do envision. Oh, go ahead, Heather.
So we also discussed having some type of introductory session. The new hires, which I'm not sure how things are being handled in the remote world, but new hires ideally would be in a room together going through the orientation. So we have them in one place. We wouldn't have the mentors in one place. So we would probably need to have some type of introductory session that just talks about the program, answers their questions, things like that. We didn't want to, we talked a little bit about it, but we didn't want to implement a like strict regimented training program, like this is the way you have to mentor, just because we thought that that was something that each person is going to do differently, and they should do it how they're comfortable with doing it, because they're the one that's going to make or break this program. So that's kind of.
But during that orientation, it would give us an opportunity to go over expectations for the program. You know, what is expected of you as a member. These are examples of things that could be done with your mentor to facilitate conversations, some question prompts, and a lot of those things are in the packet. But yes, orientation would definitely be important for starting out with the mentors for sure.
This was also the first time we'd seen the previous group's presentation. We had some little idea of what they were doing, but it kind of helped see exactly how our program could fit perfectly within theirs. They don't contradict one another in any way. So we're hoping if we can get their program implemented, we can just slip ours right in there and they can complement one another.
Yeah, they're completely complementary, we feel. I think both address the importance of belonging for new employees and really speak to the need. We need a more robust new employee experience.
Yeah, mentoring
Have
can.
we missed anyone's questions?
no missed questions that I see. Please correct me if you guys happen to throw one in there that we missed. Dr. Bolton, this is terrific. Mentoring can profoundly impact a person's experience. I really appreciate the research as well. How do you envision this would be managed in HR?
So what we were hoping to do was have essentially one of the HR administrators essentially lead the program, but have a committee under them that handles a lot of the day-to-day parts of it. That includes picking the mentors and the mentees, assigning them together, doing the follow-ups with them, that type of thing. But the HR person would be the one who, you know, they're going to have all of the names of the new hires. They're going to know their departments. They're going to know all of that information. And we thought that this program really does fit in HR, whether that be under one of Ashley's programs or not. I guess that would be up to HR to figure out. But we really think it would belong within HR itself, and that there would just be participation from others outside of it in the form of that committee.
Yeah, and that committee could be made of past mentors, past mentees, but really for a program like this to be successful, we really think it needs to be institutionally integrated so that it's set up for success. And that's where having a point person in HR who could lean on other members of the committee, we think is important.
And Paul did ask one other question, is if the mentee is voluntary or mandatory. For our data purposes, we were hoping to have two different groups, one that chose to participate and one that did not, so we could compare those. But ideally, I think it would be great if it was a mandatory piece. But I've heard through the grapevine that Dr. Bolton doesn't like the word mandatory for stuff like this. So we decided to make it voluntary. That, yeah, hopefully with lots
especially for the initial run, because we really want to gauge the effectiveness of it. And that means, you know, having a control group, having a test group, but you know, maybe not mandatory, but highly encouraged.
And, you know, of course, you always want people that are participating in these type of programs to want to do it, right? I mean, we don't want it to be like jury duty where it's mandatory. We want everyone's experience to be good, and we want everyone to be there and to feel like it is definitely helping and benefiting them. So we don't want to make it mandatory that, you know, this is something you have to do, but rather this is something I want to do.
Kathy, timeline to start. So our timeline was thrown in the air with COVID. Ideally, we were hoping to start this fall, but we have not talked about a new timeline. It's probably something that we need to get together with the previous group and see if we can push for something to happen so we can implement both of our programs simultaneously. But yes, our timeline that we had established is no longer valid.
But, you know, this program has a lot of value, so sooner rather than later, we hope.
And I think that kind of.
But we want to start out, but we want to do it right. So, you know, taking the time to do it right is important. Sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that answered Sarah's question too. She really liked how several of these ideas are interlinked. Was the intention to keep them separate or have integration? And I think you exactly answered that of, if we can launch these both at the same time and integrate them as a piece that comes through in the new employee onboarding, then they work smoothly together.
Yeah. I think it's great to look at both of these programs as, you know, two parts of a new employee experience.
Yeah, Paul says, I think how we treat people when they arrive is one of the most important things an institution can do for that new employee. Great idea, great job. Any other?
If we missed your question, let us know in the chat, and we do apologize. We want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get the answers they want. Looking over it now.